Small steps, big changes. Small steps, big changes. Small steps, big changes. Big changes.
Welcome everybody to this webinar hosted by Small Steps, Big Changes, or SSBC Nottingham. My name's Helen Platts. I'm an independent consultant and I've been privileged to work with SSBC on a number of projects over the years. So I'm really pleased to be here to help facilitate this learning event. As you arrive, one of the weird things about these webinars is often we don't get a sense of the community in the room. So can I please encourage you to just put your name, where you're from in the chat to say hello and to build that sense that we're all here together. Just a little bit of context for those of you who aren't familiar with SSBC's work. And please do forgive me for referring to my notes on another screen here, so I don't want to miss any important facts you might want to know if you're not familiar with their work. So hosted by Nottingham City Care Partnership, SSBC is one of 5 National Lottery Community Funds, A Better Start sites. It operates in Nottingham City with 4 ethnically diverse city wards as its target areas. Working with parents over the last 10 years, nearly 10 years now, SSBC has developed and it is delivering a programme of support and activities with families for children up to age 4 to promote good early childhood development. And key outcome areas of the programme are diet and nutrition, social and emotional development, and speech, language and communication, as well as systems change. And by that, we mean that the outcome areas not only focus on areas of child development, but also on improvements in the way that local health, public services and the voluntary and community sector work together with parents to improve outcomes for children, an issue that's very dear to my heart. SSBC is in the final stage of the programme and is very keen to share the learning that's come from its project and programme design and delivery. And as you know, the focus of this webinar is on sharing the learning around improving access to diverse communities. As an audience, you'll already been attuned to the importance of improving access, but we hope from the practical examples provided today that the learning shared may offer some different tools in the toolkit and help keep this important conversation going, because of course, we're nowhere near the end of this conversation. The report that accompanies this event has much more detail than we're going to be able to share today, and this is going to be sent to you in your post-event pack. So, who are we hearing from today? Well, today on the webinar, we have Liz Pemberton, Director of the Black Nursery Manager Training and Consultancy, SSB Parent Champion Jin, Donna Sherratt, Head of Programmes SSBC, and Dr. Nadine Otting, SSBC Research and Learning Officer. And I can see you all coming on there. Hi, everybody. We've got Mutsa Makaka, who's the founder and CEO of Shifting Your Mindset. Where are you, Mutsa? Hi, there you are. And Julia Harris from Nottinghamshire Healthcare Trust. Lovely to see you all. Can't wait to hear from you. In the background also, we've got Hayley Ellis, Workforce Learning and Development Officer for SSBC. She's going to be supporting us with looking at your questions and keeping an eye on the chat and Q&A. And in the background, we also have Katie Whitehouse, who you may have met already on the chat function. She's in the background operating the technology for us. On that technical note, if you've got any technical questions for Katie, please put them in the chat bar and she'll respond. So over the course of the next 90 minutes, we're going to hear from each speaker in turn, and we have time at the end for questions to our speakers during a brief panel discussion. I think we're all pretty familiar with the format around Zoom webinars now, but just a quick reminder, throughout the webinar, there are 2 ways you can get involved in the discussion, and please do, because it really adds value. If you've got a question for the speaker, Please use the Q&A function on Zoom for these. If you're on a computer, you should see that at the bottom of the screen. If you're joining by a phone, you'll see it at the top. If you have alternatively a comment or a reflection, please use the chat for this and make sure that all comments are visible to both panelists and attendees. So I think enough from me. I can see that we've got people from Slough, from Nottinghamshire, of course. We've got people from, let me think, lots of people from Nottinghamshire, which is great. Newark, all points geographical. That's Sheffield. Hello, that's where I'm sitting, Margaret. Rochdale, welcome to everybody. Let's get started. And to kick us off this morning, we're delighted to be joined by Liz Pemberton. So Liz is a former Children's Day nursery manager, 16 years, I think, Liz. And in 2020, set up her own early years anti-racist training and consultancy company called the Black Nursery Manager. Liz is going to set the scene for the webinar around how we can intentionally build more inclusive environments for racially minoritized children and families by positioning anti-racist practice at the core of what we do. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Helen, and welcome to everybody that's here this morning. What a delight to be here and also to think really intentionally about the work that we are doing, not just with SSBC, but in terms of our wider work as well, with diverse communities, and thinking specifically about anti-racism as that thread that runs through, as Helen had said. I'm going to really honour the time that I have, which is really limited, but I want us to really kind of buckle up and get engaged with this next 15 minutes, 16 minutes. I don't want to, as I said, go over. So thinking a little bit about the work that I've done that's brought me here today, thinking really about how critical it is to consider anti-racist practice, but also to acknowledge the presence of racism in our society, the presence of racism within the structures and systems, and also the ways in which it is pervasive. It filters through into everything that we are doing, and how society is moving with us, and we are moving with society. When we consider the presence of racism, and when we consider the way in which it marginalizes children and families, we know we have lots of work to do. And this kind of conversation, this discussion, the practical work that we need to do has to be considered very, very carefully. But it has to be something that we are willing to engage with, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us feel. And so really to kind of kickstart this webinar this morning, what I want us to think about is our own identities, our own identity markers, and some of the things that make us who we are. So in this opening slide, what I have done is, of course, put a picture of myself in the middle and some of the identity markers that apply to me. Because if we're thinking about communities and we're thinking about families, if we're thinking about children, we as people who are engaging with those other people have to know who we are. And so I often look at those identity markers that I possess and think about how they overlap or intersect, borrowing and using that term intersectionality from Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, and the way in which these titles, these labels, these identity markers of being a Brummie, for those of you who haven't been able to detect so far, I am from Birmingham, being a cisgender woman who is of Jamaican heritage, an English speaker, I am of Jamaican heritage and culture that influences a lot of how I see myself and also how I come into spaces, how I come into the world, knowing that I am of African descent. I'm able-bodied. I am a wife, I'm a mother, former nursery manager. There are so many different things about me that overlap and intersect as I am engaging in work and as I am engaging in the world. And some of these things are more visible than others. So when we're thinking about the communities that we're engaging with, and we're thinking about the ways in which people are receiving us, we have to have a level of self-awareness. Next slide, please. And when we are gathering that level of self-awareness, we are then able to go into this work in a meaningful way. And so this kind of knowledge of self helps us and prepares us to think about who we are engaging with. The 4 E's of anti-racist practice is something that I had devised when I was thinking about the work that I was doing, not just as a former children's nursery manager and early years educator, but particularly as an early years trainer and consultant, thinking specifically about anti-racist practice. Because when we're thinking about inclusion, a sense of belonging, when we're thinking about diversity, we have to think about a range of different things. And I don't ever want racialized identities to be left off the table. I don't want us to think about culture and ethnicity as an afterthought. I don't want us to think about racism as something that doesn't really matter or isn't really important or doesn't exist, because it's very present. But how can we make sure that we are understanding that in terms of the work that we are doing? All of us in this space online here are engaging with communities who are racially minoritized in some way or another, and it is different for different groups of people, for different children, for different families, and also in terms of geographical locations, depending on where we are. And we have to have an innate knowledge of the communities and of the people that we are engaging with. So the 4 E's of anti-racist practice, I say it's always important to consider how we embrace, how we embed, how we ensure, and how we extend. And getting a little bit more into the detail of these 4 pointers is what I want to kind of cover in this kind of few minutes that I have. So when we're thinking about embracing, how do we embrace all families, racial, cultural, and religious or non-religious backgrounds, but particularly when they differ from our own? How are we coming into this space, knowing that we have all of these identity markers, knowing that perhaps some of these identities are visible, some of these are invisible? How do we ensure that we are embracing the children and the families, cultural, racial, and religious or non-religious backgrounds? What do we do to engage in conversations, to think about our non-verbal communication, to think about how we think carefully, how we embrace these things? What tools are we going into the space with? How are we embedding this culture of belonging? So when we were thinking about some of the work that was being done with SSBC, were we embedding a culture of belonging by greeting, by making sure that we had things in common? We were thinking about who we were and thinking about what we shared with the children and families we were engaging with, because diversity, as I said, is more than 1 or 2 or 3 things. It is a range of things. Ensuring that our practice is culturally sensitive, but also that we don't position ourselves as the experts. We may know lots of things about lots of different people, communities, experiences, but I think in order to honor and to respect the communities that we're engaging with, we have to place those people as the experts of their own cultural, racial, and religious or non-religious identities. And I think this is really crucial if we are coming into this work and we are racialized as white. Knowing and understanding what whiteness is as a construct is a crucial part of the learning of anti-racist practice. And knowing that we have to be really responsible for that journey in terms of anti-racism. How do we do that? How do we ensure that we take responsibility for our own anti-racist learning? How do we make sure that beyond reading books and beyond having conversations, listening to podcasts, how do we take it that step further to understand, okay, race is a construct. Race is, not real per se, but the impact of racism very much is. Knowing that race is a construct and that it is man-made means that we can actually do things to unpack and to unpick how we can dismantle racism, but we have to be really sure about that knowledge and how we gain that intentionally. We have to really extend the learning opportunities for ourselves by showing interest, by expanding conversations, but also by using culturally relevant resources. And this is something that I speak about extensively in terms of early years practice and thinking about our early years settings. But as individuals in this space, what are we doing, as I said, beyond reading, beyond listening to podcasts, and also just beyond conversations? What places are we putting ourselves in to really test the ways in which we've learnt new things? How do we ensure that even if we're feeling uncomfortable, we move through and past that discomfort? How do we make sure that doesn't stop us from doing this vital and important work? I think as humans, we are tending to shy away from conversations, perhaps, or practices that don't center ourselves. And it's hard work. This isn't easy. And I often say when we're thinking about the ways in which we engage, we shouldn't shy away from it because it makes us feel uncomfortable. We shouldn't deflect or derail conversations. If people from various communities are speaking to us about their experiences, how do we learn to be active listeners? How do we learn to decenter ourselves? How do we think about what it means to be heard? And how do we ensure, as I said, we are able to offer culturally relevant support? How are we ensuring that we are supporting in an empathetic way? We are supporting in a way which means that people trust us. We can continue to build on that trust. I think there's a lot of things that go unsaid when we are considering anti-racist practice. And a lot of this work feels quite solitary, and it is, but it's important to do that work, as I said, as an individual before we come together as a collective, and absolutely before we come together to work with racially minoritized children and families. I think about the ways in which we use this 4 E's of anti-racist practice as a reference point. Always come back to the source. How do we make sure that we can check in with the ways that we are working? How do we utilize the colleagues that we have from a range of different racially minoritized communities? What do we do if the colleagues that we work with are predominantly racialized as white? How do we engage in conversations that are going to open us up, as I said, to different communities, different families? And how do we make sure as well that we can check each other? So how do we call people in? How do we call people out? I'm thinking about, as I said, in our work situations with other colleagues, how do we do that respectfully? How do we do that safely? So I think more than anything, what I wanted to provoke in this short space of time are some questions for you to ask yourselves, questions for you to ask your colleagues, to use this document, which I will make available for everybody that's here this morning, to, have as a reference point. Thinking back, as I said, about when I opened, thinking about yourself, thinking about your identity markers, where they show up, where they don't, where and how you can hide certain things, how you can't hide other things, and how, as I said, we bring that into the work that we are doing, ensuring all of the time that we are considering anti-racist practice through the core of what we do, embracing, embedding, ensuring, and extending. Thank you very much for being here and listening this morning. I'm going to hand back over to Helen.
Very much. Thank you very much, Liz. For that it was very thought-provoking for me as a person in particular. So I think as a group listening to you, but also as individuals, I'm certainly hearing and being challenged around some of my thoughts. I think the identity stuff, clearly, we all have, even if they're secret identities, as you say, they're not visible. They come into play when you're thinking about these issues. We're going to have an opportunity to, although we're leaving Liz here now, we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions. So please keep those questions coming in the Q&A. And of course, she'll be part of the panel, the speakers, where we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And just to remind you, I think as Katie said in the chat, if you want to, you can upvote a question by clicking on the thumbs icon on the question you want to vote or upvote, or this new language that we have from webinars, all in the Q&A tab. But we're going to shift focus now and talk about another aspect of SSBC's work, co-production, through the lens of working with diverse communities. And many of you will know that co-production is an approach used by SSBC to ensure the voices of the community at the heart of the organisation. And actually, it's an approach. It's almost like on an identity level for SSBC. I've seen that work out, and it strives towards co-producing its services by working alongside parent volunteers. They're known as parent champions, who've played a vital role in the design and development of services. I think, Hayley, are you able to share a chat around some work in the chat bar, a link to some work? Yeah, you've done it. Absolutely brilliant. This is a link to some work that's been done looking at co-production and the way that SSBC has been doing that over the time of its operation. And they're going to be hosting another webinar on the 3rd of July 2024, this year. So do keep your eyes peeled for that event. But we're delighted now to be joined by Jin, one of SSBC's parent champions. They're volunteers. Hi, Jin. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Helen. Yeah.
Good.
Hello, everyone. My name's Jean. So, as a parent volunteer for Small Steps, Big Changes, my personal journey from the past to the present and into the future has been profoundly shaped by my engagement with this organization. As a member of the majority ethnic group, I had a few opportunities to interact with people from other minority ethnic groups while living in my home country, China. Similar to a frog at the bottom of a well, my limited surroundings hindered my exposure to diversity. Moreover, my lack of knowledge about diversity meant that my interest in learning about it remained very low. Despite China's rich cultural tapestry with 56 ethnic groups and more than 80 languages, but interaction between different groups were typically confined to certain national events, so leaving a little room for mutual understanding or learning. This situation persisted until I moved to the UK. After arriving in the UK in 2016 to pursue my studies, I suddenly found myself as part of a minority group in the country. Diversity surrounded me in every aspect of life here, from interactions on campus to forming friendships with teachers and peers. I experienced the diversity firsthand. Although I was still somewhat isolated due to a large number of fellow Chinese students, I began to explore cultural diversity more actively. However, I often feel hesitant to step out of my comfort zone and engage more actively with other cultures. Shortly after discovering I was pregnant, SSBC reached out to me. The service manager, Stacy, introduced me to the family mentor services. My family mentor, Stephanie, began visiting me regularly. She provided the invaluable guidance on parenting skills, emotional support, and child development knowledge. Through SSBC baby groups, my child and I made friends from diverse backgrounds, and we began to explore diversity more actively. Attending SSBC events such as Messy Makers, Cook and Play, Jiggle and Wiggle, Story and Rhyme Time, Caterpillars, and Baby Massage further enriched our experiences. Later, I received support from 2 more family mentors, Sam and Sanya, who continued to offer valuable assistance with SSBC support. My child, Jamie, and I experienced positive development. And he especially experienced such development from birth. This was important to me because engaging with SSBC has helped me thrive in diverse environments and gain confidence in my professional life, especially when collaborating with individuals from various backgrounds. During a parent champion election at an SSBC run coffee morning, I learned about the parent volunteer role. In the summer of 2019, encouraged by SSBC volunteer manager Katie, I became a parent volunteer in September. Despite having little prior knowledge of the role, I then became a parent champion in November. Since then, I have been actively involved in various meetings and activities, include induction training, surveys, one-to-one meetings, social media recruitment, video shooting, parent obsession groups, meetings, SSBC hot topics sessions, executive implementation group meetings, parent volunteer Zoom meetings, community partnership meetings, board preparation meetings, and board meetings. Initially, my volunteering involved distributing SSBC leaflets, engaging with families in public locations, and attending meetings in person. However, when the COVID lockdown struck, most of our activities shifted online, with meetings conducted via Zoom or Teams. Despite this transition, I continued to learn from other volunteers, board members, and my family mentor, further diversifying myself and my child through my volunteer role. Unfortunately, due to distressing family issues, my child and I had to leave the country in the late 2021, returning from a different continent only in August 2022. Though initially I harbored negative thoughts about this period, I have since changed my mindset, viewing it as an opportunity for personal growth. The experiences during this time have also deepened our knowledge and real-life understanding of diversity, transforming my initial curiosity and fear into an eagerness to learn and embrace diversity. Upon my return, I resumed my volunteer role, working with diverse families in such a diverse organization has significantly enriched my personal and professional life. I feel more confident as a parent, proud to witness my child development under SSBC support, and fulfilled in spreading the word about SSBC services to families. While volunteering, my child and I also engage with other programs and organizations, such as Home Talk, Shifting Your Mindset, Framework, Diversified Education, and other community CICs. We eagerly participating in events and activities that celebrate diversity. I have observed SSBC's passion for designing services that people in our communities want and need. The organization endeavors to adapt its services to cater to the racial, cultural, and religious backgrounds of individuals. For example, its translation services have enhanced the accessibility of sessions and service. Engagement with families through cultural celebration fosters inclusivity. The diverse composition of SSBC's employees and volunteers underscores the importance of diversity in the workplace. While my Chinese peers may not understand my continued commitment to volunteering for SSBC because their focus is understandably on earning income, but for me, it represents a journey into diversity, a journey for both myself and my child to be born and raised within a diverse environment. I'm grateful for the opportunity SSBC offered me initially, and I have grown immensely through my experiences with the organization. No longer do I feel the loss of my majority status. Instead, I relish being part of the diverse fabric of society. In China, there's a saying, where three people work together, there must be one from whom I can learn. I came to this country and the community to learn the language. To my surprise, through my volunteer work and SSBC, I learned about diversity. Meanwhile, I'm continuing to learn about other values of this community from everyone I meet and hear about. SSBC may complete its 10-year journey next year, but I will continue to carry forth what I have learned and benefited from into my future day-to-day life. Thank you. Small steps, big changes, Nottingham. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jin, for that very moving and I'm just checking I'm unmuted. Yeah, that's good. Very moving and insightful talk about that journey and how volunteering from a small place can lead to such a life-affirming experience. And also thinking about what Liz was saying earlier about the identity map. It seems like you've moved from this sense of identity to being in a majority status, to being in a minority status, to being part of an inclusive and diverse community. And thank you so much. And again, everybody, questions. I can see that people are saying, Jin, what an inspirational speaker. Thank you so much, and for sharing your passion. So we will have an opportunity, everybody. Please do post your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to that later. I'm really looking forward to that. So now we're going to go to Nadine, Dr. Nadine Otting, Research and Learning Officer at SSBC. Hi, Nadine. She's going to share some examples with us around how SSBC has approached this area of work. And I know, Nadine, there's a lot of learning to share. We can't do everything today. So you're going to pull out a few illustrative examples of SSBC's work in this area. And again, everybody, the report that's going in your post event pack will have much more detail. But over to you, Nadine.
Thank you, Helen. So I'll be talking today about the Family Mentor Service. I will start by introducing the local context in Nottingham for those who might not be from the area, and will then move on to discuss the Family Mentor Service. So Census 2021 data shows just how diverse Nottingham is. Over 42% of the Nottingham population are from ethnic minority groups. Almost 9% of Nottingham's household have no one speaking English as a main language at home. And although most people who have a main language other than English speak English well or very well, over 20% cannot speak English or cannot speak English well. Translated resources support equitable access to information, and SSBC has co-produced the following two resources: an information pack for new fathers and a guide to pregnancy and parenting during Ramadan. These resources are available on the SSBC website in multiple languages, and more information about the resources can also be found in the Insight report, which will be shared after this event. The Insight report will also discuss more of SSBC's examples of our approach to commissioning, which is community-based commissioning. But again, here I'll focus on the Family Mentor Service. So community-based commissioning involves local communities in service design and delivery. It ensures services meet the local needs and are culturally relevant. It builds on the assets that already exist in the local communities and supports community development. The Family Mentor Service was built on, excuse me. The Family Mentor Service is an embodiment of the SSBC vision: children at the heart, parents leading the way, supported and guided by expert. And when consulted, what local parents requested was ongoing emotional support and reassurance and expertise around parenting. And their preferred format for this service was a home visiting service delivered by peers in a non-judgmental way. The Family Mentor Service was built on assets in the local communities and is delivered by 3 local CVS organizations, and they recruit and train the family mentors. Vacancies are widely advertised in local communities through publications, social media, and word of mouth. And applications are encouraged from all social and ethnic backgrounds. Candidates are selected based on aptitude rather than work experience or prior education. And the organizations have a unique assessment process which involves both group and individual work to evaluate the ability of candidates. The family mentor roles are entry-level positions, and successful candidates get full on-the-job training, and this includes accredited training at level 2. What do family mentors do? They build trusted relationships with families, and they deliver small steps at home, which is an evidence-based manualized program of preventative health advice and child development support. They also deliver community activities and groups such as Cook and Play, which Jim mentioned as well, and they provide signposting to other services. Let's look at a video about small steps at home.
Small Steps at Home is where we go and visit people actually in their own homes, in the community, so it's more convenient and far more comfortable for them. It's great if you've got, professional skills, but the most important thing is that you've got lived experience of bringing up a family yourself.
It's really rewarding, and I see this as a very positive program.
Having regular visits from Magda has been a lifeline on some days.
Being a new mum, everything's new, you're a bit unsure, you're a bit scared, what's about to happen, if you're doing the right thing. Luann was just reassuring, she was great, she gave me the advice I needed.
But to have someone to talk to about what you're going through, and they've got a wealth of experience with their own children and having spoken to other moms, but they're concentrating on you, is amazing.
We have a different handbook for different ages. It's the handbook for life, and obviously as the babies get older, obviously that grows with them to going into more tantrums and managing fighting, aggression, etc., and all those lovely things you have to deal with as they're getting bigger.
SSBC undertook a workforce survey to also better understand the impact of family mentor employment on building community capacity and aspirations. This survey was conducted last summer, and we received 54 responses, which is quite a good response rate out of the total of around 67 family mentors at the time. The results show that almost all family mentors live in Nottingham, and wanting to help their local communities was an important motivation for people to apply for their current roles. And as one family mentor shared, I wanted to support the community and engage parents to make a difference in parents' and children's lives. Family mentors were also asked about their ethnic background, and we can see the ethnic profile of the family mentor workforce here. And when compared to the Nottingham census data, we can see this is quite a close match, and the diverse workforce is seen as a key contributor to making the family mentor service such an accessible service for families. Among the surveyed family mentors, 14 non-English languages were spoken, including Polish, Urdu, Arabic, and Romanian, which are some of the most common minority languages in Nottingham. This is an underrepresentation, though, as we know from one of the family mentor teams that they already have 17 different languages represented within their team. When matched with families from similar backgrounds, families can deliver small steps at home in the home language. And here we have feedback from one mother. I'm so glad to get a family mentor. I'm new in the UK, I can't speak English, I just understand a little bit of it. And I found SSBC services amazing, delivered in my own language. Survey results show that nearly all family mentors are parents themselves, and 35% of them are single parents. There's a mix of part-time and full-time working among family mentors, and almost 3 out of 4 family mentors work less than 30 hours a week. And this part-time working facilitates the family mentor's own childcare needs. As one family mentor explained, well, this role has massively affected my life and my family's. I get to have breakfast with my family and be home for tea also. Family mentors inspire parents to pursue employment as a family mentor, and we found that 17% of family mentors had had a family mentor themselves. One family mentor shared with us, I also wanted to make that difference to another family that my mentor gave to me. Volunteering also acts as a pathway into employment, and almost 1 in 3 of the family mentors volunteered with one of the family mentor service providers, or SSBC, before their employment. We also asked family mentors about their family history, or their work history. 28% of family mentors had done paid work before, but not in the last year. And 7% of family mentors had never done paid work before becoming a family mentor. And this shows that family mentors successfully attract new and returner job seekers. The family mentors' roles also shift households from being out of work to having someone in work. The family mentor role gives the opportunity for personal and professional development. And family mentors report a range of skills and knowledge that they developed, such as early childhood development knowledge, building those trusting relationships with families, lots of transferable knowledge and skills, such as IT skills or running groups, and personal development, with particularly confidence often mentioned. Family mentors feel that their training and work experiences prepared them for a range of future job opportunities, with some suggestions of jobs within a similar field, the field of early child development, but also outside of their current fields, such as education, healthcare, and social services. And family mentors were looking at aspirational jobs, including roles that would require further training or education. One family mentor shared, I feel like this job has also given me the confidence to explore further education, with the intention of trying to do a job more psychology-based, working with families and children, helping with behavioral issues. This diverse paid peer workforce makes the family mentor service a well-accessible service for local families, and currently over 1,000 children are signed up for the service, which means that 40% of eligible families living in the SSBC ward engage with the service. Family mentors have now delivered small steps at home or community groups to over 5,000 children, totaling over 111,000 interactions. And we see that higher percentages of Asian British, and Black, African, Caribbean, and Black British children benefit from the service compared to white British children. And a survey also found that non-English speaking families in one of Nottingham City's primary care networks rated the family mentors as one of the services most easy to access. Independent evaluations by Nottingham Trent University show the positive impacts for children and their families of the service. In qualitative interviews with parents, all parents would recommend the family mentor service to a friend or family member if they were eligible. And the evaluations also showed parent-reported improvements in well-being and confidence, both parents and children eating healthier, and improved sleeping routines and behaviors in children. There were also staff-reported improvements in children's confidence, language and communication, and English for those children who speak another language at home. as well as parent-child relationships and more interactions between children and parents being more safety conscious. So all of the NTU evaluations are available on our website. And these NTU evaluations have also looked at children's outcomes measured by the Ages and Stages Questionnaire, or ASQ. And the ASQ is a screening questionnaire to evaluate children's development. And the total score results from 5 subdomains, which we see here on the left. When looking at the 24-month ASQ scores, we see that children who participated for more than 18 months in small steps at home had the highest mean scores overall, and 4 out of the 5 subdomains as well. The evaluation also showed some statistically significant correlations. So at 2 years old, an increase in small steps at home visit is correlated with a statistically significant increase in the fine motor domain. And similarly, at 12 months old, an increase in small steps at home visit was significantly correlated with an increase in the gross motor subdomain. As SSBC is now in its final year of the program, we're building the program's legacy. And positives to share are that the Family Mentor Service won the Social Value Award in the 2023 Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Integrated Care Board Health and Care Awards. And the Family Mentor Service has been awarded additional funding through a successful bid to the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Integrated Care Systems Health Inequalities and Innovation Investment Fund. The Family Mentor Service will be a targeted selective interventions for families identified in collaboration with midwifery, Children's Public Health 0 to 19 nursing service, and other health practitioners, with a focus on those earliest stages of a baby's life from birth to 12 months old. In addition, SSBC is also producing a toolkit that captures the family mentor approach and principles and will explain how to deliver the service. And this toolkit will be made available on the SSBC website. Thank you, that's all from me, and I will now pass over to Julia Harris from the SSBC Commissioned Early Intervention Speech and Language Team at Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you. Thanks, Nadine. That's a mouthful. Hi, everyone. So yes, as Nadine said, I'm a speech and language therapist, and we work with SSBC, work in partnership with SSBC since January 2021. We're a small team of 2 speech and language therapists and 5 home talk workers delivering services in the SSBC wards since January 2021. And I'm just going to take the next 10 minutes or so just to share some of our learning from working with SSBC. So this is just to give a bit of background of who we are. So we are part of the early intervention team as Nottinghamshire Healthcare, and our very small team have been contracted to deliver the home talk programme alongside a few other services in the SSBC wards. And I've just put a few little logos on there just to show you a bit of our history as a team. The early intervention team, we're really proud of really focusing on that clinical quality in the services that we offer around speech and language, but also in our adaptability and change, and really responding to families' needs that we work with. So I've just put a few things on there. So the Burco 10 years on, which is actually a report. It's 15 years ago it started, but in the report 5 years ago, it was a national review of speech and language services in England, and our early intervention team were highlighted as good practice in the way that we support children's early language skills and the families. And also the Early Intervention Foundation, when there was a review of language interventions, our home talk offer, which I'll talk to you about in a bit more detail shortly, was highlighted as good practice, and that there's that evidence base there, it's positive impact for children's spoken language. And also, I know they're not called Public Health England anymore, but at the time we were highlighted, our home talk service was highlighted about how we'd adapted and changed to deliver our services during the COVID pandemic, so which we're really proud of. And then that kind of brings us up to date that last year, through working with SSBC, we were put forward to 2 national awards, both of which we won. And one of those was the Nursery World Award, and we won the prize for inclusive practice, which we're really proud of. And one of the judges actually highlighted that our offer in SSBC awards highlighted inclusive practice was at the heart of everything that we do, which we're really proud of. So that's just sort of putting our service in context. So one of the offers that we deliver in the SSBC awards is Home Talk. So for those of you that are not familiar with Nottinghamshire, Home Talk is a home visiting service for children and their families, 2 to 2.5-year-olds, around supporting children's spoken language difficulties. And the things that we do, we share strategies and activities to support children's language development in the home with families. And those can entail things like singing, book sharing, everyday routines out and about. And it's very much tailored to every child and every family. We have the golden threads that run through Home Talk to have that clinical quality about speech and language development, but we very much tailor it to the families that we work with. And so one Home Talk package doesn't look like the others. And these sessions are delivered in the home by Home Talk workers who are early years practitioners, who are skilled and have enhanced training around speech, language and communication, and then they're supported by speech and language therapists. And so just a bit more about Home Talk. So Home Talk is for all children that age 2 to 2.5 that have got difficulties with their spoken language only. And so children that need that bit more specialist support around wider communication difficulties, we have the specialist speech and language service. So Home Talk is for those children that they're developing typically, but just probably need a bit of boost with their spoken language. And from our needs assessments, about 15% of children are eligible for Home Talk, and it's for all families. So monolingual children, bilingual, multilingual. We work really closely with interpreters and our bilingual co-workers in the main speech and language team. And we've got lots of resources translated into different languages, so it's accessible for all families that need it. So just thinking about here, we're talking about how we work in diverse communities. So how do we work as a commission service in our SSBC wards? And I think just reflecting on lots of people have talked about already this morning, it's that adapting to meet the needs of each family. Every family's got their own culture, their own experiences. They all come with their beliefs, and it's very much for us as a Home Talk team that we are open and honest, and we have those open conversations and that genuine interest to find out, to be able to meet the needs of each family. We want to find out about, so a lot of our services is talking about that play and interaction, and we spend a lot of value on child-led play. And for some families, that's quite a new thing. It's not something they've experienced themselves. So we spend a lot of time in those first visits finding out about families' experiences of play and what they played with as children, what their thoughts are, how they feel, because we want to be able to support families in the best way possible. And sometimes we work with some families who are very adamant, okay, singing, that's not for me, nursery rhymes, I'm going to find that really difficult. And so our team are very skilled at working out, well, what will work. So if that, walking to nursery every day, or when you're cooking, how we can encourage those early language ideas and strategies into those everyday routines, because essentially we've got the child at the heart of it. We want to have an impact on that child's speech and language development. So what are the best ways that we can work with each family to be able to support that child? And I think reflecting back as well, what Liz was talking about, it's, we come in as we've got lots of knowledge and experience about speech and language and ideas and strategies, but the family, they've got the knowledge and experience about their own child and their own life. So it's about working together. So we've got those joint targets. We don't want to come in as we're the expert. It's, we're here with our knowledge and experience, and coming together, we can get those targets together to have that positive impact on the child's language development. It's really important to respect the culture and views of every family that we work with. And as Nadine was talking about, lots of languages are spoken in the SSBC wards. And so one of our things we hear a lot from families is a lot of misunderstanding and myths around speaking additional languages and whether they should speak their home language or they should try and speak English. And our guidance in Royal College of Speech and Language and a lot of the research and evidence is for families to speak the language that feels most comfortable to them, because then children, they're hearing that really good, rich quality language, all the different grammar and the complexities of language. So it doesn't matter what the language is, we celebrate language so that the child hears that really good quality, has that foundation, and once they've got that, they can add as many languages on top. And so as a team, we really want to inspire families to continue to have that connection with their culture and with their language, and that we encourage speaking whatever language feels comfortable to them. And I think recently one of our home taught workers has had families that sometimes think, no, I'm going to speak English. Their English might be conversational, but they want to speak English. And I think the thing that our service, we really pride ourselves in having that open, honest conversations with families, that the home taught worker was able to model and coach and share those ideas. And initially the family said, no, we're going to keep speaking English. But then after a few sessions, they came and said, oh, well, actually, we've noticed that when we are speaking our home language, the child is actually responding more and starting to say a few words. So I think we will start to do what you've suggested. And because the home taught worker had gone there without making a judgment, without saying you must do this, you must do it this way, she'd kind of been open and honest and shared her views, but respected the family's wishes, that actually the family felt able to say, actually, we've changed our mind, we would like to do it in a different way. So I just think having that respect for families' cultures and views and beliefs and everybody's different experiences really benefits our service. We really appreciate reviewing and delivering the delivery of our service. So we meet regularly as a team, we collaborate, we do joint visits, we link in with our colleagues in the wider community to be able to support effective delivery, and both in our clinical by having those one-to-one supervisions, but also as a team approach. We're always looking at new ways that we can work, which leads me into that embracing the test and learn approach across the team. Very much very grateful for the great relationship we've got with SSBC that give us the opportunity to test and learn the ways in which we work. And we offer home talk in our wards, but we've also got a few other services that we offer. For example, we do sessions for 1 to 2 year olds. And when we first started out in January 2021, and we were trying new things, and we were thinking, okay, we want to be inclusive, so we're offering sessions, and we had several interpreters also coming because we've got a few families speaking different languages. We delivered the sessions and it was fine, but actually as a team on reflection, we thought, hang on a minute, we wanted to include everybody, but actually having lots of different languages all at once, and to being able sure we give that quality around the speech and language information and support, we didn't quite get that. So we kind of came back, had a little review, okay, how can we do it differently next time? But it did inform us being able to offer our adult learning session through in one language. So we had an Arabic interpreter, so the whole group of participants who all spoke Arabic, so we could deliver the session in one language. So it did kind of move us on to think of other ways that we could make our services accessible for families. And I think also it's just that linking in with local community offers. So we've worked, especially when we first started in January 21, we linked in a lot with the family mentor service because they're out in the community, they know the families, doing lots of joint visits, make sure we go along to a lot of their sessions. They kindly invite us to a lot of their events in the summer and festival events, so that we've got a presence and we can meet and talk with families. And we've also got our links with the main speech and language service, who've got a bilingual lead. So if we've got things we want to share and discuss with them, then we've got those good links. And also just being available around our team. We're always looking out for events and community groups that are happening, so that we can involve ourselves and promote our services. And I feel like there's lots of other great work that we do, and I could probably talk for longer, but I'm aware my time is probably coming to a close. But I hope that's given you a bit of a flavour about what we do. And I'm going to pass you back to Helen for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. And I think what I'm feeling as I listen to our contributors today is that we need both real clear data and evidence and stories to keep this conversation going, to move the dial on our learning and flexibility and skill in working with diverse communities. So thank you very much indeed, Julia. Again, please keep any questions coming and we'll get to that. We're going to have time at the end for a panel discussion. But I'm going to move on now to Mutsa, our last contributor today. So Mutsa is the founder and CEO of Shifting Your Mindset. Hi, Mutsa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm liking your background. Where's the background?
I'm in New York.
Lovely. Do you know, you do get around.
I know.
So Shifting Your Mindset's a community-based organisation. I think you've had funding from the SSBC Ideas Fund, and you're going to share with us some of the very innovative work that you do with dads in Nottingham. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Over to you then. Over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm just waiting. Yeah. Shifting Your Mindset Dads program. So in this picture, you will see a father with 2 children. Almost 3 years ago, I went into the unknown. At that time, a single mother to 2 boys, from Black British boys, but African heritage, because I am from Zimbabwe. And I think it was about 4 years after my divorce, and I was still struggling to find my feet. And I woke up one day and I rang my sister and I said, I think we had already established Shifting Your Mindset, and we were focusing on kids because obviously, you know, being a mom, my whole life was centered around children. And I phoned my sister and I say to her, I think we are lacking something in the wider vision of Shifting Your Mindset. I've been praying about it, and my instinct is telling me that we need to work with fathers. And she's like, hold on, because bearing in mind, I am a single mother to 2 boys. And I said, yes, we need to work with fathers and men. And she said, how would that work? You know, why fathers? You know, if anything, you should be working with mothers. Well, this is how the story went. We started off, you know, with all the stereotypes of what people think sometimes of Black fathers in the community, what people think sometimes, what single mothers think. You know, it was a perfect moment where we had to shift the mindset. So why did we choose to work with fathers? From a personal perspective, before I go into the ins and outs, from a personal perspective, I'm still raising 2 boys. And after the divorce, there was a lot of change in behavior that I would see. But whenever I would have my brothers around, my boys would act in a different way. Even though they were strict, they would, and I was usually the softie, they would respond more. And even their behavior when they used to go to their fathers over the holiday, they would respond more. But what I found challenging as well was the fact that in the midst of my own personal experience was trying to get the support of having male role models around to be able to inspire my children. So that was one of the personal perspective. 2, I started to do a lot of research in seeing the behaviors of my boys. I started to do the research, and I started to find out that actually the reason why my boys respond more, or they are much more behaved, or if my brother steps in and says, oh, Manuel, stop it, they just stop. But I have to scream like over 10 times, or I have to throw a tantrum and then change things happen. So research on its own was showing, you know, having male role models, having fathers involved, children that have fathers involved, or great role models, male role models that play a fatherly figure from an early age, are most likely to be successful, most likely to be confident, most likely to excel in life. And then, so the long run, better outcomes for children, you know, better outcomes for parents. And then the other dynamic that we had at this point was obviously because of Black British children, African heritage, the parenting rearing, like the perception of parenting styles or parenting skills, or from the cultural dynamics varies. And I sort of like I was caught in between having to grow out of how I was raised in Zimbabwe and then adapting to how to raise my boys here, and obviously the cultural clash. So even when I would reach out to people for help, they would always bring in a different style. Everybody had a different style. And another thing that I found out at that point is even a lot of fathers were lacking, they were lacking that place of where they could learn more, because the perception, especially in the diverse communities, in the Black ethnic minority communities, there's different cultural backgrounds, different perceptions of what parenting should be, and it looked like even in terms of fathers, they were more closed up. It was in the Black community, they were more closed up. Like, we don't have to be open about how we parent our children. But as we progressed with the program, and we are grateful because after we had the vision, SSBC at that time was actually like, they had the Ideas Fund coming. We put in our idea and we are so grateful. Like, honestly, we thank God, because when SSBC said, right, because it's one thing having an idea, but the resources, because this was untouched territory. There was nowhere in Nottingham where we had, different specific Black fathers or ethnic minority fathers support, where they could go, that would have, that would understand the cultural dynamics, the cultural things behind driving how they parent their children. So when the Ideas Fund came up, it came up right at the time when I had that phone call with my sister. So I was like, okay, God is giving me a sign here, let's give it a try. And SSBC were on board, they gave us the funding, and as well as it wasn't just even about the funding, it was the support, because they also understood where we were seeing, where our vision was coming from, in terms of understanding that parenting is not defined by gender, understanding the roles of what fathers play in a child's life, especially in the early years, understanding the dynamics of having both parents present within the family structure. And it's something that I'm going to speak about in terms of both parenting being present as well, as I progress with my presentation. And in addition to that as well, SSBC also provided the opportunity for us to be able to engage with and partner with other local organizations, because now as we started the program, we were more equipped to get the message out there. We were more equipped to get more dads involved. We were more equipped to get even mothers involved. It started to get the word round. And what was really powerful about it is when we got to a point where we managed to engage the fathers and we had the program starting, because we had the young fathers that were there that had their own perception. We have the middle-aged fathers, and then we had the elderly fathers that were also grandfathers, but also wanted to play a part in the program, which worked out well because they were also showing that role model to be able to give tips and hints to the younger fathers. But what was powerful in all of that was the fact that once we were going and once the fathers knew that we were there and we were providing the support, it wasn't one-off. They started to come in numbers, and it was actually a breath of fresh air to them, because they were like, we have been waiting for this. But and then I said, but you know, when we would try and engage, sometimes you would say, no, you know, we don't need that. But it turns out that, you know, actually it's a much needed service, especially for fathers. They enjoy that time, they look forward to that time, and them learning and enhancing their skills is actually making them understand as well. And in most times the fathers, if you look at their backgrounds and how they were raised themselves and how the parenting styles were different within the Black communities or ethnic minority communities, some coming from Africa, Jamaica, and all of that, the parenting style was different. But now as they come together and they're actually learning from, you know, like they always say, we want to change the generational cycles, because when you speak to them, most of them usually say, you know, they never had that time, you know, where you sit down, because the parents, the generation that they grew in, their fathers were always the breadwinners and they were always at work and that was their role. But actually, on hindsight, seeing that the relationships of how build, if they had better relationships, not saying that their fathers were not good, but if they had more engagement with their fathers, they would have probably learned a lot of things much quicker and much better. So as we now progress in the program, we are seeing that generational shift as well. We are seeing the perception of how fathers are getting involved with their children from an early age, from pregnancy. They want to know, you know, they're into breastfeeding. They're bringing out all these ideas. They're into games. They're looking forward to it, to the point that they've all now suggested that, you know, we want to bring the mothers in because we want them to understand how we are, you know, where we feel, and then we get to a place where we understand each other. And even in our program, we do have single fathers that come through and sometimes because of the dynamics around maybe legalities and all of that, they're sometimes stuck in terms of how can they be a father when they're not in the same household as the child. And even as part of our program, we do support them and we do make sure that they do understand that, you know, it doesn't mean when you're separated, you are in a position where you are not a father. Being a father is wherever you are, you're just a role model and you have to invest in time. So we have seen fathers that are in a separated household, probably separation during pregnancy, child is born and they're really active, you know, this time is divided because they now understand the importance of their role and as well as changing those cultural dynamics. And so far, till date, this is just last year's figures. We've managed to engage over 300 fathers, not just in the Tuesday sessions, but what we have done is, because the fathers have also said they want the mothers to be involved and want us to put our heads together and, you know, along with the mothers to build a family unit, whether separated or not. So we also have engagement sessions and family sessions now incorporated to be able to get people to understand the roles of parents, knowing that they're not only just defined by the fact that, you know, by gender, but it's also parenting skills and working together and communicating clearly as a family. And in that, we're seeing a lot of changes, even in the community as a whole, because we are seeing fathers being proactive, them coming forth to say, oh, why don't we do this? Or, you know, why don't we do that? So in reflection on our journey and in reflection on that phone call I made to my sister as well, I now also totally understand that both mothers and fathers are very important. Parenting is not defined, and it's not defined by gender, and it's about being inclusive, because there are a lot of fathers out there that are actually seeking that support, that are actually waiting, and once given the platform, they'll do a lot. So this is like almost 3 years in. Here I am with my boys and with the dads program, who are amazing, and they're not just being fathers to just their own households, but they are fathers now to the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mutsa. And I know, you know, your work, I feel, is really inspiring. And I think it's also, when you were talking, I was thinking about, it's not just dads who have to shift their mindset, it's us as well. We really do have to shift our mindset around this. And thank you very much. And if people want to find out more, Mutsa gave her contact details, but don't forget, I think you'll be featured in the report that comes out. So thank you very much, Mutsa. So, goodness, well, I'm going away feeling quite uplifted, but let's have some questions. I know that Hayley's been keeping an eye. We're coming to the panel. I think everybody should reappear, and Hayley's gonna, hello, Hayley. So let's take this time, and everybody do keep posting and comment, or also to the questions that are coming. But Hayley, what have we been hearing about in the Q&A and chat?
So the first one I think I'll highlight is, how can I know more on how to use the 4Es model?
Liz, that's got your name written all over it. I know people are really keen to hear about that model. As an individual and as an organisation, how can we really use that model to inform our practice?
I think really kind of having it as a sense checker. So it can be used in a variety of ways. What I usually advise early years educators to do is to print the document out, put it on a wall that you're going to look at, you're going to reference, and always check back in, whatever you're doing, whatever conversations you're having, whatever you're thinking, and always say, am I doing this with this at the forefront of my mind? Am I embracing? Am I embedding? Am I ensuring? Am I extending? How you develop the questions around that and use it, I guess, as stimulus material when you're having staff meetings, before you go into a conversation with a family, when you're engaging with a child. Developing the questions around that is really up to the individual and the organisation, but having it there as a sense checker, as a reference point, somewhere that's visible, so that visual representation for you all of the time is always very helpful. I think in terms of kind of developing on that, I would advise anybody that's here on the call who isn't already familiar with my work or isn't following the work that I do, to do that at the Black Nursery Manager, on most social media platforms. But I'm also developing a toolkit to use specifically for the 4Es of anti-racist practice.
Great, that's really good to hear, Liz. Where are we going to next, Hayley?
Okay, so do you have any examples of how we engage communities in these discussions, especially where they feel suspicious or untrusting of services?
Okay, so shall we go to Mutsa and Liz, back to Liz again for that one? And I don't know whether Donna, you might want to add something there. So can you repeat the question, Hayley?
So do you have any examples of how we engage communities in these discussions, especially where they feel suspicious or untrusting of services?
Let's hear from Mutsa first. Where's Mutsa gone? Is she there? Have we lost Mutsa? Okay, Liz, can you kick us off on that, and I'll ask you.
Absolutely. I think, you know, I made reference to this notion of discomfort, and often when we're going to hear about what things we can do, it means that we have to put ourselves in a space where we're going to hear something that's possibly going to make us feel uncomfortable. Being willing to step into that zone of discomfort by hearing feedback and positioning ourselves as people who can receive that. So I talked a little bit about being an active listener, but that comes with lots of different strategies to employ the active listening. So I would always say, put yourself in a space where you're in a one-to-one situation. Don't be in a situation where there's lots of professionals and then the family. I think that one-to-one relationship building is absolutely key if we're going to have these frank discussions and also open ourselves up to areas that we can improve. I think one of the ways that we need to be able to open this dialogue is also giving families an opportunity to think about how they want to approach this. So they will set the scene for you, give them that power and that autonomy. So they are telling you how you know, they want you to enter into that space emotionally, physically, all of those things. Give them the option. So it isn't something that's done to them. It's something about working together collaboratively. Julia spoke about that in her presentation, which I thought was really key. So when I talked about making sure that the family is the expert, this is where this also comes in. I think this thing around leaving yourself open to being criticized, depersonalizing things. Yeah, because I think the moment you start taking things personally, it creates a barrier for that communication. So this is not about you per se. This is about how we can make sure that this works effectively and more positively for everybody involved. I don't want to take up too much space.
No, good. I am going to come in with another question there. I will come back to you, Mutsa, but, you know, it really struck me, you know, your point about being open to criticism. So what advice would you give me? I mean, I'm a racialized white woman, I came from a working class background, racialized as white. And I'm aware that I'm often a bit worried about offending people. So what advice would you give me that can put me in that place of being open to criticism? If I feel I might have offended somebody, where might I need to go to carry on that conversation so I don't shut it down? You know, I'll start with you, Liz, because you mentioned it, but I'll open it up to the rest of the panel.
I think, first of all, it's accepting this is part of the process. You are going to get it wrong. So accepting that from the outset, you are going to get things wrong because you're not the expert. And once you've come into it with that space in your mind free, it frees you up to receive the criticism if you're going to get it. Yeah. And when you get it, it's then about not challenging it in a way which then makes the person that said to you, do you know what, Helen, I think you could have done this a little bit differently. Or actually, when you said that, I was really offended. Or you used the wrong terminology. This is what I would advise. Yeah. Silence in that moment is key. Be quiet.
Yeah.
Receive it. Be quiet. Don't come back with anything. Don't try to deflect. Don't try to challenge. Don't try to argue. Don't try to say, well, in another situation, there was another Black person that didn't find that offensive. Just say nothing. Yeah. Apart from, thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it. And you can talk to whoever you want to talk to about that, but not the person that's giving you that in that moment, because I think it's really important, as I said, to honor that the bravery it would have taken for somebody to come and say to you, you know what, I didn't really appreciate that. I think often is the case when conversations are coming up about offense, the centering starts to happen. So I talked about decentering oneself. If you are the person in that space, you're racialized as white, decenter yourself. This is not about you. Take yourself out of that situation, be quiet, receive it, thank the person for giving you that feedback, and take that discussion wherever you need to take it outside of that physical space. And absolutely do not cry. Suck it up, take a deep breath, move out of the room, because nobody's interested in your tears at that moment. So that's short and sweet.
Thank you very much. Who else wants to add something from the panel there? Does anybody else want to add anything? Great advice, very clear.
I think if you go back to the original question about the communities, I think that there's and engaging with them, there's this, there's the opportunity to help the conversation by being really clear on being diverse is not a bad thing. And I think quite often we talk about the facts, the figures, and, you know, diversity means this, and there's all of these challenges around funding different services, which can then make that person feel like you're a problem just by the way you started talking about it. So there's a real opportunity to start with that whole, we live in Nottingham, it's a really diverse, we're really privileged to have such a rich diversity, because that enables us to have that curiosity, the awareness, and to learn so much. I've already messaged Jin privately to say, your presentation taught me a whole load of things that, even though I know you quite well, I didn't know about. And that awareness raising and conversations like this just help to make it, I think like Liz just said, to free you up to know that you don't need to know everything, but you need to remain aware and curious.
Yeah. And for you, Jin, I think when we were talking before the programme, there was some wonderful enjoyment in going on that journey from majority to minority to being part of an inclusive, diverse community, that you've actually found that really enjoyable, challenging, but enjoyable.
Yes, I do feel, all the things happen is just like unpredictable. I didn't plan for all this, but all happened. It seems like It's just meant to happen, and I just have to accept and enjoy the journey. Yeah.
Thank you, Jin. Hayley, where are we going next?
Do you feel like we could have answered the next question, but it is, how do you think having diverse parent champions has supported the SSBC programme?
Oh, so I think that would be for Nadine and Donna. What difference has that those wonderful, she said in a biased sort of way, SSBC parent champions, what difference have they made, Nadine?
I think within SSBC, you know, we work in partnership, we work with many experts, you know, we're experts by training, by their work experience, the professionals, but parents bring a unique perspective because they have that lived experience. And although all services are aiming for a very joined up approach, they're not at the receiving end of those services, and they're not moving through that journey from pregnancy up to 4 years old. So it is, you know, that unique insight that parents can give us into what works for them and what is it they really need. And I think having diverse parent champions, I know when I'm developing a survey and I need a parent to look at it, Jin is just an email or a phone call away. They are a continuous reminder that people from different ethnic backgrounds are not hard to reach, because they're right there. And I think Mutsa can agree to that as well. Dads are not hard to reach, but services don't serve them well. And I think that continuous reminder is extremely important.
Yeah, thank you. And Gemma reminding us all that actually remembering again that we're not the experts and help us open up to have these great and useful discussions. And family mentors, I know, have done wonderful work in that area. Thank you. Hayley, what else have we got? I think we've got a couple of questions that are practical based.
So we've got one here. We know that money may be tight. How can some of these ideas be put into action in a climate like this?
Oh, I'm going to go to Donna and Mutsa to just think out loud about that, because I know Mutsa, you do things on a, as a lot of us do, on a shoestring, wonderful work. But let's just hear from Donna first, your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think you could have the most amazing resources, spend hundreds of pounds on lots of different things, but it's about how you apply it. So I actually think some of the things in essence come for free, and it's about attitude, being open, having that curiosity, and then some of the confidence to be able to make yourself feel vulnerable. And I think, you know, Liz's, I can't remember what you called it, Liz, your first slide about you shows it starts with you and how you therefore see the world, and then how you then put that on other people or vice versa. And I think some of those things are absolutely free, and it's about the awareness raising and how you recognize that the power of one can build to the power of, you know, and have a great movement and motivation within that. So yes, there is money to be spent here because people need time to process, to understand and to network. But there's absolutely things that every individual person, having listened to today, can take away and take forward and start to make some of those changes.
Thank you. Mutsa, what would you say?
Okay, so
your top 2 bits of advice, how to do it on a shoestring.
Top 2, okay, I'll give you top 1, which is one of
that's good.
top 1, which is one of the principles. So in Zimbabwe we have this saying that we say it takes a village to raise a child, right? And that alone says everybody is involved in some way, one way or the other. So it's just about building that community spirit. So for example, when we celebrate, you know, the jubilees and all of that stuff, neighborhoods come together, you know, so in those type of environments, there's you can create those, not just jubilee, but any day, create a system where, you know, we are a community and there's always someone to help. I mean, we have at this point, we now have like 11 volunteers plus that just give their time because they understand the vision of what it means to be a community, and you just need to stir that up, and it starts with you, like what Donna said. You have to be out there. You know, sometimes when we're doing random acts of kindness with my young son. Sometimes we're just up and about and people ask you, oh, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And we're just saying, just because, you know, community. And then they'll be like, oh, let's join you, you know, even when we're litter picking. So it's a domino effect, because it does take a village to raise a child, but it starts with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm aware there's a question for Julia, but I don't think we've got time. I don't know if you see in the chat, Julia, about the role from Bruna dos Reis to, can you give us more information on the role of your bilingual co-workers? I wonder if we could take that question and make sure that that gets answered, as do a lot of the questions that we may have sadly missed. I think they're going to be picked up, aren't they, guys, in the post-event pack. So we'll come back to you, Julia, and I'm sure you can provide that for Bruna. Thank you for your question, Bruna. I mean, we are coming to the end here. I want to say thank you, a really big thank you to our speakers, everybody who's been helping in the background, and of course, everybody who we can't see, but are out there listening and posting those questions and their thoughts. Thank you very much. I think Hayley's going to put an evaluation form link into the chat there. Please fill it in, or you'll receive it by email. And that sounds like a threat, but it's not a threat. Please do fill it in, because it does help us get even better at this. And please go to the SSBC Learning Hub. I think you're going to put that link into for us, Hayley, into the chat. And your post-evaluation pack will be sent out over the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much, everybody, for what I've found to be a really enjoyable insight and thought-provoking session. Thank you very much. Bye.